Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Fraser and this is my husband Joe.
Hi.
Hi, you're right there?
Not really.
Why?
The notes are over there.
Oh, hang on. There
And
we
I'm
go.
just looking at myself going, God, I look a mess.
Right, let's not look at ourselves because my hair looks like a penis and you do look a bit of a mess.
See?
Just
What words are we allowed to use to describe that?
scruffy.
Scruffy.
Yes. You look a bit scruffy.
I feel a bit scruffy.
And I think that's okay because yesterday you told me that I would make a good chicken.
Really?
Yes, do you not remember telling me that?
No.
It's just like automatic insults come out of your mouth.
You make a good chicken.
Yes.
What was I referring to there?
Me!
Yeah, but I mean, in what sort of context?
I don't think that was a context. I think it was just you, like, being mean.
Hmm. Okay.
Anyway, welcome to the 1000 Authors Show.
Maybe I meant you were very focused.
I don't think that's what you meant.
Goal-oriented.
No. Oh, we were talking about how there had been chicken drama. And a lot of flapping.
A lot of flapping. There was chicken drama. I don't know what it was, but it was clearly dramatic in the head of a chicken. So, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about how you insult me all the time.
Right.
And no, we're talking about how to be a time traveller.
Okay.
Yeah, but first, before we get to that, what are you reading, Joe?
I've just started reading Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson.
What do you think so far?
I don't know, I'm only like 3, maybe 4 chapters in. I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
I'm not sure.
Just not sure. It does start off. It's Mary Shelley at the moment, isn't it?
Well, no, we've done a bit of Mary Shelley. We've done a bit of modern day or slightly future. Gone back to Mary Shelley.
Okay, keep reading. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just finished it, and really, really enjoyed it. It did take a little while to get going, so give it a bit of a chance.
Yeah. See, when you read a book and go, "This is brilliant, Joe. You need to read it." I read it, and when I go, "Vicky, this book's brilliant. You need to read it," you go, "Uh-huh."
No, I don't. It's just
Put it away.
you never. What have you given me recently to read?
Well, for the last 10 years, I've been telling you to read Drew.
Have you put it in my hands and said read this?
Yes.
When?
About 10 years ago.
Try it again. Oh, seriously, no, I want to read it because you're not the only person who's told me it's good.
Okay. So I'll dig it out.
Dig it out, put it in my hands, and I'll read it. I am reading fiction. I'm reading The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and I'm literally on chapter 2 to starting. So I can't tell you anything about it other than it seems like epic fantasy is a lot of book.
Is it a lot of book?
A lot of book.
Is it book 1 of 75?
I think it might be 3 books in one.
Okay.
I've got a horrible feeling it might be book 2 of a series that I haven't read the other one.
This is...
I'm going to check that before I go any further into this book because...
Has he just like casually used the 300 names of different people?
No.
That's normally a sign that you're in the middle of a series.
Yeah. I'm going to double check that though in case it is book 2 of a series and then I will chase book 1 and read that. Start with that. This was on my list from my reading spa.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was recommended to me by the reading spa.
They wouldn't have recommended book 2, would they?
I don't know. Maybe. It would be unusual.
Mm.
But I'm also reading, I'm between non-fiction at the moment, so I've just finished reading The Secret Lives of Colour by Cassia St. Clair, which is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
A book to dip in and out of rather than to read all the way through.
Sure.
And I'm about to start reading Out on the Wire by Jessica Abel, which is all about the best modern storytellers, with a foreword by Ira Glass, who makes This American Life, which is a really good podcast. We were listening to a lot of them on the way to holiday.
Yeah.
And he's such a great storyteller. Those podcasts are such great storytelling, like examples of great storytelling. And Jessica Abel has written this book about how they tell the stories. But it's not, like, part of the reason why I chose it is because it's a cartoon book. It's almost like a comic book.
Really?
Yeah. And I was really intrigued because I thought, well, that's really interesting because I've read a lot of books on how to tell stories and storytelling. And I thought it might be really interesting to read one that is presented differently.
Okay.
So I'm going to... I will talk about that more in the next episode.
Hope it works.
Me too. So yeah, this week we are... What have we been doing? We've been putting Christmas lights out.
Christmas lights all over the front of the house. and in the hedges and in the trees and around the porch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because there's a thing going on in our village to make the village as sparkly and Christmassy as possible to cheer everybody up. Because obviously, the age demographic in our village is average age of about 200.
Yeah, and everybody's had a pretty rubbish
Pretty
year.
tough time, yeah, because they've not seen their families and they've been quite isolated. And there's been stuff going on in the village. People have been looking after each other, but it's been tough.
It's been a tough year. So yeah, the village is extra sparkly at the moment.
Yeah, and they're doing an Advent window thing, and so 25 of the people of the households in the village are making an Advent window for each day of the Advent calendar, which is really nice.
It is.
And so that's cool.
You're not allowed to put a brick through them and steal the chocolates though.
No. No.
No chocolates. You can't.
They're not. No. No. It's like they're opening a different window. There are no chocolates.
No chocolates in this Advent calendar.
No.
Okay. Disappointing.
Anyway, time travel. Is it really possible?
No.
Yes.
No.
Well, maybe not the type of time travel that you think I'm referring to, Joe. Like the actual going through time and then not stepping on the ants that will, change the course of history. That time travel is not possible.
Okay.
It's not possible.
Forever?
I don't think so.
Who was it? Was it who was it who had a unannounced time travelers party and only advertised it after it happened? Nobody turned up. That was proof that time travel doesn't work.
Well, I mean, maybe nobody wanted to go to this crappy party. I don't know. That's not proof that time travel doesn't work. That's not proof that time travel doesn't work. There are many holes in your proof.
It wasn't my proof.
Well, there are many holes in that proof. Whatever. But no, time travel is not possible. Not now, not ever, not in the future. It's not.
What? That's a very bold statement.
I don't think it is.
From
Physics.
Victoria Fraser, the physicist.
Victoria Fraser is not a physicist. It's just not possible.
Right.
Well, it's certainly
That's
not
very
possible
bold
to travel
statement.
into the future because the future has not been written yet.
We're always travelling into the future.
Well, okay, mister, but it's not possible to travel like 10 years into the future because the future has not yet. We don't know what it's going to be. And that way lies the trousers of time.
I'm planning on travelling 10 years in the future. What about you?
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not possible to say, I am going to go from now to 10 years into the future, like now. We'll travel there in 10 years. Yes.
Journeys take time. And that one will take about 10 years.
Did anyone ever tell you that you're very annoying? Oh.
Yes?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
So time travel is possible, but not in the Star Trek paradoxy kind of way.
All you need to do is do a lot of high-speed walking. You get chromatons stuck to your
you get
stuck to your hull.
chromatons stuck to your hull.
And then you need to be teleporting.
Have a transporter accident.
And
you'll
through the
end up
chromatons.
200 years ago.
Yes. There you go. Just do that.
Yeah. Anyway, back in the room. Back in the present. Okay, it is possible to travel through time, but not physically. And we'll come back to that in a moment. First, though, one of the oldest pieces of writing that we have, that we physically have, is from 3,775 years ago.
Okay.
And it is a letter of complaint.
Nice.
Which I just think is awesome. And it is a letter of complaint from a dude who was buying copper from a merchant. And it basically says, what do you take me for? I agreed to buy this copper, and you have tried to give my servant this inferior copper, and now I don't have my copper, and I don't have my money, and I had to go through enemy territory to get it. I'm not going to come and buy crappy copper off you anymore, and I want my money. And that's basically what. And then there was a list of other grievances as well.
Mm.
It was a, and bear in mind that 3,775 years ago, you didn't just sit down and tap out an email of complaint. You had to go and find a scribe and then get them to write it for you. So he was obviously very disgruntled.
Mm.
And there was lots of stuff about how, I've donated loads of stuff to the temple on your behalf, and yeah, what do you take me for? That was the thing that made me smile the most. It was loosely translated as. And it just really made me smile, because we really haven't changed that much in nearly 4,000 years. It's like, back then, people still got cross with crappy customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And it delights me that one of the earliest pieces of writing we have is a letter of complaint. I'm outraged of Tunbridge Wells, outraged of Mesopotamia. Yeah, somewhere in Mesopotamia, I don't know. But the guy was called... Maybe it may have been Earth.
It was Mesopotamia, wasn't it?
It was. The complainer was called Nanny, and the complainee, the crappy copper merchant, was called Ea Nasir, I think.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about time travel being possible. Because that gives us this really vivid glimpse into a snapshot of somebody's life across time and space.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm talking about. When we write, writing is the closest thing that we'll ever get, I think, to time travel. Because we're still reading now plays by Shakespeare that were written 400 years ago.
Yes.
Which are a snapshot into what life was like back then. Okay, Shakespeare's take on it, and it's probably...
Probably wasn't all, gender swaps and mistaken marriages, was it?
Probably not. But that gives us an idea of the kind of thing that people found funny back then, that people wanted to be entertained by. When we're reading Chaucer's, what do you call them? Progress?
Canterbury Tales.
Canterbury Tales, that's the one. When we're reading the Canterbury Tales, that is, again, it's his stylized version, but it gives us a glimpse into what life was like back then. The stuff that we write today, business books, non-fiction books, fiction books, they are all a picture of what life is now. And when you put that together with, especially when you put that together with stuff that's on TV, although, again, it's like the edited highlights. Oh my god, can you imagine looking back at social media and being like, everybody was very shiny. Or, alternatively, a total car crash.
Yeah.
Excuse us one moment. Whiskey!
What are you doing, Whiskey?
Yeah, ripping up all in my rug.
Yeah, throw yourself roughly to the floor.
So yes, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about why stories are so important and why it's so important to write things down. Because we haven't just got that ancient Mesopotamian letter of complaint. We also have, some of the very first writing was ledgers and lists, checklists of things. Yeah, to make sure that, the authorities knew how much stuff was in certain places and who had what and who was paying
taxes.
for it. Collecting taxes, yeah. But not only that, also codes of law and bills of rights. Those are not modern things. We might not recognise them as being particularly equitable, perhaps, but in fact, some of the more ancient bills of rights that we have, there was a guy whose name I forget, but another ancient Mesopotamian leader, who had codified what he believed to be right, which was getting rid of corruption, making sure that people had enough to eat, and the stuff that really we could take a lesson from today, And he was trying to get rid of all that stuff, and he wrote it down and codified it, and got rid of all the corruption in the government at the time. And
Crikey,
yeah,
job.
I know, right? Can you imagine trying to do that today? So we've got that. We've got ancient Egyptian letters to lords. So the Amarna letters are fascinating. I studied those when I was at university. The Amarna letters were actually mostly written in cuneiform rather than ancient Egyptian, but they were letters that went between the ancient Mesopotamian rulers and the Egyptian pharaohs.
Okay.
And they were, some of it was kind of military and political, but some of it was just chit-chat between rulers who were friends. And it's really interesting. There was, there are letters from widows to their generous brothers-in-law, because back then, poor women were pretty much almost entirely dependent on the men in their lives, much like some of the bullshit that still goes on today. Face of amusement. And then also letters to dead relatives. So we quite often have inscriptions on pots and things like that are put in tombs, and a relative might, like this happened in ancient Egypt, a living relative might inscribe on a pot something like, "Ugh, Imhotep is being a right dick. Can you please put a curse on him and make sure that his crops fail this year, please?" And so they would go and put that into their relative's tomb,
In the hope that they would go and
in the hope that
do over Imhotep's crops.
Well, in the hopes that the dead relative would have a word with the gods on
Nice.
their behalf. and it just, again, it's like, we wouldn't go about it in quite that way, but it's that idea of bitching about somebody who's annoyed you, you know, and it's really, we have not changed that much. And I just really love that. And when you put that together with the love letters that we've got from those times as well, some of which were very racy. And when you put that together with the archaeology that we've got and the actual physical sites, and we see what people place value on, it really gives us a great idea of not just what people did, but what they felt. And I just think that's really important. And it got me thinking about why it's so important that we tell our stories, because it shows how alike we are across time as well as space. And so instead of creating all of these fake boundaries, like, you can't see boundaries on land generally. I know that, like, the Berlin Wall was a very obvious one.
The light thing.
But when you're looking at the Earth from space, you can't see nation lines. You can't see, unless it's an island, you can't see where one place stops and another starts. And so the whole thing just makes, like, racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia and all that, it just makes it all the more ridiculous. And telling our stories and reading our stories breaks down those barriers because it shows us how alike we are.
Nice. So write your stories.
That was Whiskey. She agrees that we should write our stories. So yeah, anyway, the whole thing that inspired this was an episode of The Infinite Monkey Cage.
Okay.
And they were talking about space archaeology, which is just like, that's so cool. And that's not like archaeological artifacts in space and on alien planets. It's going into space and looking at our Earth.
Okay.
Using radio topography and radar and stuff.
And does that get you different stuff than the sort of aircraft-based?
Yeah, it does. It gives you the wider context of the landscape for a start, so you can place sites in the wider context. But also you can, like, they've mapped the ancient course of the Nile, so from 4,000 years ago, where the Nile was. And so now they can see where that riverbank is, and they're finding loads more settlements. So obviously all the settlements were along the riverbank. Used to be there. Yeah, exactly. So we've got all of these lost settlements. And one of the first things they found was all of these worked precious stones, and they think they might have found a jeweller's workshop in this in this city, possible city, that was previously lost. It was really cool. And they found all sorts of other things as well. So, like 11,000-year-old temples in Turkey, which just turns the whole of archaeology on its head. Because until fairly recently, the thinking was that there were no temples, there was no organised religion or anything until we started farming. Which was
that far back.
After 11,000 years ago, yeah. But they've got these carvings in this Turkish temple. I can't remember the name of it. I can't pronounce it anyway. But if you Google 11,000-year-old temples in Turkey, you will find the most incredible carvings, and they're not like super primitive cave painting. They're really sophisticated animals, like depictions of animals and like lions and things. And so these are not primitive people. This is 11,000 years ago. This is a big deal because it turns everything on its head. It's either, well, people were coming together despite being nomadic to worship or to create temples or whatever,
put that work in.
Work in, yeah. Because that was like, that requires an economy.
Yeah, you need surplus, don't you? You need an efficient means of producing the things that you actually need, so that you've got some spare labour to do the things you want to do. That is an economy.
Yeah, and organisation, and because not everybody would have had the skill to do that, so that means that people would have been trained to do that somehow.
Yeah.
So there's either like turns on its head what people were doing during the hunter-gatherer phase, or farming started earlier than we think it did. So it just opens all sorts of really, really interesting questions into what people were like back then. But even going back further than that, you have burials. Neanderthals buried their dead, and really early humans buried their dead, and that shows that there was, they cared about people beyond just survival, because otherwise, why bother burying your dead?
Yeah.
And even more than that, healed bones shows that even back, even prehistoric humans cared about their family and friends, because there is no benefit whatsoever in looking after somebody with a broken femur. There just isn't. And you could not survive back then with a broken femur. You would have been stuck where you were.
Somebody needs to look after you.
Somebody needs to look after you, bring you food, take care of you. And there are ancient burials with major, small bones will heal, but the big injuries like skull fractures and femurs, that requires someone to look after you. And so when you look back, even over all of that time, we're still recognisably human in the most important ways.
Looking after each other and working together.
Yeah. And we only know all this because we tell stories about them. They leave stories behind. And so if ever you are in any doubt about whether or not you have a story to tell that matters, don't be in any doubt about that. Your story does matter. All of our stories matter. Our ordinary, everyday stories matter. Because if we take the time and trouble to read and write stories by and about people who look like us and who don't look like us and sound like us or worship like us, then we realise that, okay, there might be those superficial differences, but ultimately, we're far more alike than not. I wonder how long it would take Whiskey to misbehave. Whiskey has just arrived on the podcast. If you're watching, I am right here. She was after my water. She was after my glass of water because she has a little naughty face. Say hello.
She will not say
hello. So yeah, that's probably a good place to finish. What's the takeaway, Joe?
Takeaway, your story matters. Even if you don't think anyone's interested, people are. It's a record. It's a history of the world. It's a history of our culture.
It is. It's human history. Yeah. Which, by the way, is why I find, this might sound like a controversial thing to say, but I don't think it is, Black History Month very frustrating. Because it's like they get a whole month to talk about Black history. It's like, well, A, how about Black future? And B, it's not just Black history, it's our history, it's everybody's history. And that is another reason why these stories are so important to tell, like everybody's stories are so important to tell. Because they make up the sum total of human history. And if we can see it in that context rather than your history and my history and that history over there.
Those people's history.
Yeah, thus glossing over the stuff that we perhaps don't like so much. We don't get that full picture. If everybody tells their stories and we bring that together, we get everybody's full picture. And we see it in all of its, we see all the ugly bits, but we also see all the beautiful bits.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important. So yeah, thanks. Important messages.
Tell your story, people.
Tell your story. But we have an author shout-out this week.
Author shout-out.
Yeah.
This is a new feature.
Could be. But Carol's new book has... Carol, I can't get up and get it because I've got a listen. But could you grab Carol's new cartoon book?
That one?
No, not that one.
Chaos to Come.
No, not that one either.
Oh. I don't know.
Oh man, where's that book?
This is poor preparation.
It's not. It's somewhere.
Oh, I know where it is.
Okay. Could you please pause from, just before I said, could you please pause? And then I will come back and listen to you. Oh, listen, you're going to have to get off. Come on. Get off.
What sort of book is it? Do you have any colours or thoughts?
It's not up there at the end of it. Understand. It should be. Same colour. Right, okay, cool.
Preparation.
And we're back in the room. Okay, so Carol, over lockdown, actually not even just over lockdown, in the last 2 months, whilst doing my Power Hour, Team Moxie Power Hour.
Shout out to Power Hours.
Shout out to Team Moxie, has written her very own cartoon book for children called Please May I Have a Puppy? And I am going to use this book to persuade Joe to let me have a puppy.
Okay.
This book will tell you what you need to know before getting a puppy, how to choose the right puppy, what to do from the day you bring them home, and what you need to teach your puppy to be your perfect pet. Carol Clark, the Doggy Doctor.
Nice.
But the best thing of all is that it's illustrated by Carol.
Nice.
Because she did the Da Vinci cartoon course, which is the cartoon course that I did.
Cool.
And she has written... and
D'Souza.
that is Sean D'Souza Psychotactics, and Alison Beer, hey Alison and Sean, do the the actual training. But yeah, all of the illustrations in it, Carol has done herself, and they're delightful. It's just really lovely. So yay, well done Carol. That book is now available. Please May I Have a Puppy? It's now available from Amazon. And yeah, if you want to write a book, get in touch. I have a couple of spots opening for my VIP coaching. You can email me, vicky@vickyfraser.com. Or if you wait until after Christmas, I will be opening the doors again for Team Moxie Power Hour. If you want to get on the waiting list for that and be the first to know when you get to join before I open the doors to the general public, you can go to moxiebooks.co.uk/power hour.
Nice.
Yeah. Coming up next week, we're going to be very lazy and just list out the podcasts that we really enjoy listening to.
Okay.
Give a bit of a shout out to other podcasts because there are some really good ones out there.
Really good stuff.
I mentioned a couple today, This American Life and The Infinite Monkey Cage, and we're going to suggest a couple of episodes for you to start with as well for each one.
Cool.
So yeah, so Joe's going to have a few of his favourites and I'm going to have a few of my favourites. Cool.
Sweet.
Um,
It's like the episode in the middle of the series where the writers all went on strike and they had to do like a make it up as you go along type one.
what was the one the most recent one we watched though when they did that? Oh, I've got to go. I have I'm talking to my coach in 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Right, wrap it up.
Quick. My Mindle is out on Amazon. Google, look for Banish the Blank Page of Doom. It's there. If you've listened to every episode, email me with your postal address and I will send you a special silly gift. And please go and subscribe and leave us a rating and a review.
5 stars.
5 stars. Send people to moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast if you think I enjoy this. Otherwise, we'll be back same time next week.
Cool.
Thanks, Joe.
No worries.
Bye.
Bye.